you have the vision of what you want for your next chapter. You've got all those dreams in place, but you also, step 2, you also created a vision board based on your priorities of what are your top must-haves for your next chapter. It's a journey, right? And just like any journey, whether you've called Uber or Lyft or you're getting in the car, you have to know where you are, where you're starting from in order to come up with your pathway to get to where it is that you want to go. That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sharri Harmel. I'm your host for the Extraordinary Women podcast show, and I'm so happy that you are here today. Like I said, we're going to dive into step number 3 of the 7-step framework that comes out of my book that will be released sometime in the fall called Designing Your Fabulous Next Chapter. And this step is all about you getting very clear about exactly where you are right now in the areas of your life that you want to change in your next chapter. Just like when you call an Uber, do you ever sit there and maybe it's I do this in Paris all the time. It's a place I haven't been to before and I don't know the address. I don't know what street I'm on. I don't know the address of where I am, and therefore nobody can pick me up and take me to where it is that I want to go. This is all about finding out your address. Where am I right now? What is my starting point right now so that I can figure out the best route that I need to take to get to where it is that I want to be? We're going to use, in this example, our vision board categories. That's the easiest way to go about this, because if you recall, if you haven't done step 1 was all about the dream. Step 2 was about prioritizing the dream so that you have an understanding of what are my top categories, if I want to call it that, and that I want to create in my next chapter. And then in step 2, we all created vision boards that really identified what those top categories, those top priorities that we have and we want in our next chapter. I want to give you a heads up, have your journal at hand, because you're going to be using your journal in this particular step. For those of you that are on audio only, feel free to listen. Obviously, I love it when anyone listens, but also go back if you can. Go back and watch the video over on YouTube so that you have an idea. I think it will be helpful. Visuals are always helpful, aren't they? So anyways, I talked about going back to your vision board. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see my vision board. Which I think might help as we go through some of this process. So I think I can get there. Here I am. There. There is my vision board. Might look very different from yours. This is a recreation, and that is exactly what you want to do. You want to take the vision board that's got all the images, all the photos, the symbols, whatnot that you have, that you connect to every single day, and really connect to the feelings that you want in each of those categories. This is a recreation, a simplified version that I put into a journal. I would do the same. I would suggest that you do the same thing because it's going to help you to go through this process. You don't need the visuals, the images, I should say, and the symbols. You just need the categories. Now, I have 4 categories, but as I said last week, you could have 1 category, 2, 3, but no more than 4. And I say that only because the brain can't focus. Much as we think brains can multitask, they really can't. And we need to provide an incredible amount of direction for the brain in order to help us, in order to help us to get to where we want to go. So keep your categories, remember, to a 4. This, is mine. I remember how I want to feel in each of those categories. As an example, the career and calling area, And we write the feelings down as though they're affirmations in the present tense and very positive. I'm promoting my upcoming book on LinkedIn. I just use that as well as other social media platforms. I'm fit enough to travel. And I share that because that's going to bring up an additional piece of information for you at the end of this podcast. I have a growing list of readers, might be doing individual coaching or group coaching. And I share my story because I think the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, it is super important in terms of what kind of a mindset we have as we charge forward on what it is that we want to create. My story is that I'm making a difference for women who are 50 years old and more, 50 plus, design and create amazing next chapters that, are fulfilling, that are purpose-filled. And that's truly about paying it forward, having value, feeling valuable as we move into that next chapter of our lives. So what you're going to do is you're going to create, as I mentioned, recreate your vision board into your journal. Then, just to remind yourself, take each one of your categories and create a page in your journal for each of your categories. You're going to rewrite in your affirmations or the feelings that you desire. And remember, those feelings were what caused you to pull certain images that are in your vision board. So it's all feeling based. Now, the next step is to say, okay, this is what I want, right? This is absolutely what I want. But where am I right now? Now you can see my 4 categories. I want them all to be 10s, right? But I actually sat down and gave myself a current rating in each one of these 4 categories. You can see career calling. I want it to be a 10. That's obvious. But I gave it a rating of a 5. Dating and love, I gave a rating of a 1. Home, I gave a 6. And travel, I gave an 8. And you might be wondering, where in the world do those numbers come from? And that's what this particular step is all about. I took the affirmations, so on the page where you've got the category at the top in your journal and you've got your positive affirmations, all the things, the dreams, the visions that you want, the feelings that you want for that particular category. Now I did the flip side, and that's what's in blue, where I actually had to talk to myself about what I am doing in this category, where I am right in this moment. And you can see that it requires honesty. It requires honesty, truthfulness, even details, because you could turn around and say, oh gosh, in the career calling area, I'm a 5. I want to be a 10, but I'm just a 5. And that might just be because let's make something up. Social media hasn't found me yet, as an example, which is kind of a cop-out, right? It's a total cop-out. You have to get into the details in terms of understanding what is currently going on so that you can create a plan going forward. Because if I just do a blanket, oh, social media hasn't found me, I have no idea where to go with that, right? I have no idea what to do next. So the details are what's going to provide you the information to come up with a plan, come up with a way to get from where you are to where you want to go. Now, you can see it's extremely detailed. I talked to, and honestly, the list is much, much longer, but I didn't want to bore you with all of this. Writing the book is slower than expected, but I recognize that I don't have regular scheduled writing sessions. That's not in my agenda. I write when I feel inspired, right? I really haven't totally figured out how to post in various social media platforms, LinkedIn as an example. And at the bottom, as you can see, and this has to do with story, the story we tell ourselves. I admitted that I need to work on my mindset because imposter syndrome is huge. Why should I write a book? Nobody's interested in my book. I'm not a writer. And that story is not very positive, right? In contrast to how I want to feel, which is very positive and very kind of strong and empowered and yet giving. The story of where I really am at this particular moment is not positive. And what I always find so interesting is that the stories we tell ourselves are the things that stop us often and stop us from contributing in the world in the way of which that we really envision ourselves, contributing, giving. So by getting stuck on imposter syndrome and being negative, I actually can't pay it forward. I actually can't make a difference out in the world, which is something that matters with me. So I'm going to show you one more just to give you an idea. And I share this because my vision board, this process, I should say, actually helped me to make a decision. So in the home category, as an example, which is one of my top categories on my vision board, I've been in this dilemma for 6 months, believe it or not, of do I put my current apartment on the market and buy an apartment I love? I love this apartment too, but this apartment that I love, or do I do the renovation on this current apartment? And so really the difference is the time, energy, money, all of that associated with doing a renovation, or do I go into a situation where everything is already done? So I belabored that particular decision over and over and over. I connected, when I did the vision board, I connected to the feelings that I wanted, and that safety and security is very, very important to me, especially as a solo. Money, we handle all our money if we're a solo, and therefore that matters, but also time. So I have this dream of the book. So what I started to realize when I did the feelings that I currently have, and you can see them all there, that renovation just felt incredibly stressful. So by going through this particular process, even in a decision that was in one of my categories, helped me to identify what it is that I really wanted. Because if you take a category and let's say you have two directions you could go, and my example is kind of easy because it's do I stay or do I move? And that is a part of the larger category of having entertaining spaces and can invite my friends in and surrounded by beautiful things. There was a decision that had to be made before I could get to the final destination. And this particular process helped me to make the decision. So I encourage you to not only take the categories that, to take the categories that you currently have on your vision board and write down, talk to yourself if you need to, how you want to feel. And then it can also help you to make decisions that you might have to make along the way as to whether or not those decisions fit with what it is you envision for your next chapter. So I think that's important to make note of, because sometimes the decisions, in my case, renovate or move, can actually stop us or get us stuck in a place that we can't move forward on the category feelings that we really, really want. So your job is to go into your vision board, recreate it, put it in your journal, a version of it, and then write down your affirmations of how you want to feel in those particular categories, and then write down the feelings that you currently have. What is currently going on in your life in that particular category? You are identifying exactly where you are today. And you can see that the more detail you have in where you currently are will actually provide you the information that you need in order to go to step 4, which is to create a plan. So now some of you might say, oh gosh, Sharri, you gave dating, we'll go to dating a 1 and you want to be a 10. Is it really that important to write down everything about where I am right now? And is it really important to get to a 10? Well, let me ask you a question. If you were in a car, an Uber car, you had wanted to go from where you currently are to someplace across town. If the driver stopped halfway and said, ma'am, this is as far as I'm going, you have to get out here, imagine how you would feel. I can really clearly see myself frustrated. I can see myself, angry. I can see myself afraid because I don't know where I am. I can see myself just depressed, resigned. Oh my God, now I'm going to have to figure out how to get to where it is that I want to go, or I'm just going to give up. That exact same thing happens when we have something that we really want in our next chapter. For instance, my category of dating love, but we stop halfway. We stop halfway because we didn't do this process, this framework to get to where it is that you want to go. And none of us want to get halfway in whatever amount of time we have left on our journey and say, that was enough. Okay. So the more details that you can get to in where you are right now will help you in the next step to create a plan. Now, there's a lot of you who might be saying, as I did, but when I went through my card sort, or I kind of wrote down all of my priorities, I had more things that I didn't put on my vision board because they weren't my top 4, but they matter to me. And I'm going to lay out a few of them. These might be things like money, because money impacts, obviously, other things on the other side, those 4 things that are important to you, or 3 or 2, whatever it might be. Might be wellness. You might pull exercise out separate. You might have particular hobbies, new hobbies that you want to explore. And you can, because remember, your vision board that's in your journal is an abbreviated version of the big vision board. You can kind of explore some of those categories if you so wish. I just made some up here. Exercise, I gave a 1. Wellness, I gave a 4. I kind of categorized those differently. Money, I gave an 8 as an example. And what I found really interesting is that the exercise component actually impacts my career component, because in the career piece, I wanted to feel strong enough and healthy enough to, go on a book tour if I was asked. And therefore, I need to be fit enough to do it. And therefore, exercise is going to be a subcategory that I pay attention to as I create my plan going forward. And we're going to start to get into the plan in the next step. So you've got your top 4 categories from your vision board, but feel free to add some additional categories in a separate way, just as I did, so that you can decide, do some of those side categories, as an example, impact my top 4. Okay? Very, very important. So in review, you're going to go back to your vision board. You're going to need to pull out those categories from the vision board, put an abbreviated version into your journal. You're going to write down your affirmations, the feelings that you want in those 4 categories. Then You're going to get into, how you're actually operating today. What is going on? And one thing that I want to stress is don't let yourself get sad about where you are today. Don't beat yourself up. Don't say, oh my gosh, I'm here again. None of that, because you're really looking at this almost as though you're a reporter. This is what I'm noticing is going on today. Because if you're stepping back from it and you're a reporter, you're actually reporting on where you are versus where you want to go. The more information you can put down as to where you are today can be helpful, but pull yourself back. Don't get all caught up in, oh my gosh, this is where I am today, and I've got this huge gap. Remember my dating and love was a 1, and I wanted to get to a 10. I'm not going to beat myself up, and I don't want you to also. If you start to feel like, as you go through this process, that you're feeling anxious, or you're getting depressed, or you're getting sad about where you are now, go back and look at your vision board, the big one, and let yourself connect really to the feelings that you want in those particular categories. Step into those feelings. Imagine that you are that woman. You are experiencing the next chapter that she has created. Pretty fantastic. Once you do that, you will start to feel elevated once again and ready to charge forward. Remember, we have to figure out where we are to figure out where it is. How are we going to get to where it is that we want to go? I want to thank everyone for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and please subscribe. I love hearing from any of you about how this process works. So do share. Also, we learn from each other. That's what this is all about. That's what this community is about. So thank you very much for your time today. A bientôt.